Readers Entertainment Radio presents Booklights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Booklights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Booklights today. We're so glad that you're here. You're in for a huge treat, especially if you are a spooky lover like me. We have Christa Carmen on today, and if you haven't read her books yet, there are a lot of spooky treasures there, so we will definitely be chatting about that, and I will read her bio here so you can get to know her. Christa Carmen lives in Rhode Island. She is the author of The Daughters of Block Island, winner of a Bram Stoker Award and a Shirley Jackson Award finalist, which our longtime listeners know that The Lottery is one of my favorite short stories. So anyway, very exciting. The Indie Horror Book Award-winning Something Borrowed, Something Blood-Soaked, and the Bram Stoker Award nominated Through the Looking Glass and Straight into Hell. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Pennsylvania, a master's degree from Boston College, and an MFA from the University of Southern Maine. So she's totally smart, guys. And when she's not writing, she keeps chickens, uses a Ouija board to ghost hug her dear departed beagle, and sets out on adventures with her husband, daughter, and bloodhound golden retriever mix. Most of her work comes from gazing upon the ghosts of the past or else into the dark corners of nature, those places where whirls of bark become owl eyes and deer step through the tunnels of hanging leaves and creeping briars, only to disappear. So you can find out more about her on her website. If you check out the show notes, I have a link to her website right there. Definitely check it out. She's got a great blog and lots of fantastic information over there. So check it out. And without any further delay, Christa, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited you could be here. I'm very intrigued by your new book, Beneath the Poet's House. As soon as I saw Edgar Allan Poe in there, I thought, oh. So do you want to tell everybody about it and why they should go grab a copy?
Yeah, sure. So Beneath the Poet's House is my second novel. It came out just a few weeks ago. It is set in Providence, Rhode Island, at what is now 88 Benefit Street. It had a couple different addresses over the years, but what it always was, and sort of the spirit of that remains, is it was the home of Sarah Helen Whitman, the poet Sarah Helen Whitman, especially during the time when she was being courted by Edgar Allan Poe. So I became, very interested in their whirlwind romance, and the book is sort of it's a modern story, but it is a residual haunting based on the lives of those two poets, sort of inspired by them. And the protagonist, Saoirse White, moves into Sarah Helen Whitman's old house. And the more she comes to know about the history of the home and its previous occupants, the more she realizes that there are strange echoes between that and her own life.
Oh, I love that. Love that. And when you said residual haunting, of course, I'm very into haunted houses. Have you been in that house? Is it haunted?
So interestingly enough, you cannot get in there. It is 5 private residences now. It's been broken into apartments. So I do have a friend, the Levi Leland, who actually helped me with a lot of the research for the book. He's a Poe and Whitman scholar. He runs a beautiful website dedicated to Poe's time in Rhode Island, sort of looking at Poe through that lens, which is a very cool take. And he also runs a Poe's walking tour of Providence. So you can see the places that Poe and Whitman frequented throughout their time in Rhode Island. And he has been in the house, and he says it's quite a treat and very interesting. But yeah, I've just visited, when I was doing my research, I went there a couple times and just took it in from the outside. You can walk kind of adjacent to the backyard, and there's a beautiful cathedral behind it and a beautiful cemetery. So there's a lot of fun, inspirational things, even not going into the house. And it is, like I mentioned, on Benefit Street, which is right down the road from the Providence Athenaeum, which is a beautiful old library that Poe and Whitman would be, tucked away in the alcoves of the library. He would read her poetry there. So It's another important place. And then anybody who knows about H.P. Lovecraft and his work, inspired by many things in Rhode Island, the shunned house of the eponymous H.P. Lovecraft story, The Shunned House, is also on Benefit Street and also plays into my book a little bit. So it's just a really great location, a really great fun setting to play with.
I love that. And I don't know if you are a big time plotter or a pantser more like me, but when you were writing this book, did it give you any surprises while you were going? What was your biggest surprise?
So my biggest surprise was how easy it was for this novel to come together. I've talked about this at a couple in-person events, and it still never ceases to amaze me that so the novel previous to this, The Daughters of Block Island, that gave me some, I don't want to say even trouble, but like it was kind of what I expected in writing a novel. I've written novels before, the ones that I've published, and they always have their tricky spots, and they give you, places where you're like, what am I really doing here? There was a couple kind of plotting things that I had to work out with that, and it gave me a headache here and there. And then the novel that I just finished, which is coming out in October of 2025, it's called How to Fake a Haunting. That novel was incredibly difficult for me. I mean, I was constantly, I likened it to like running a marathon where the finish line kept moving because I would think I'd made it past the trouble spot and I'd go, and then I'd have to go back and fix something else. And so the surprising thing about Beneath the Poet's House was the finished novel really truly resembles the very first draft. And I joke like maybe, I had a bit of a muse in both Poe and Whitman, and they were guiding my hand a little bit because everything just came together really nicely. Like all of the things that you usually have to kind of like manipulate within the novel to have the coincidences and the plot points all come together. It just like flowed right out of my fingertips at the keyboard. So yeah, it'll probably never happen that way again, but
right. Well, I always call that like a unicorn book, because you always have a few books where you're so addicted to it that you just can't wait to get back to the keyboard. And it really does feel like you're sort of taking dictation, and it's just downloading. And I love that. But then you do have another book where I've had edits on books before where I'm like, if I have to go back to the beginning of this book one more time, I will vomit.
I know. I so feel you. That was this last book for me. I was like, oh my God, not again.
I know. And then you think you're getting to the end of the edits, and then the editor has this note, and you're like, oh my God, I have to go back
yes. Yep. Yeah. There wasn't too much pain and misery with Beneath the Poet's House. It was very well behaved, manuscript.
Yeah, I love that idea that maybe the poets were helping you.
Yes, me too.
Do you have a favorite scene in the book without giving any spoilers?
Ooh, that is the first time I've been asked that question. Let me think. My favorite, yes, I do. And I won't say too much about it to not give anything away, but it is. So there are two seance scenes in the book. I guess you could maybe even argue, no, there's two seance scenes. Later in the book, there's like a tarot card scene, but there are two seances. And the second seance at which the protagonist is actually present for it, Saoirse, that was very fun to write. And just, I looked at a lot of old photographs of seances and like took inspiration from all of the different tools and aesthetic and and again it just kind of the extra stuff and people who read all the way there's with that scene it's like you think what happened in it a little bit after it occurs, and then there's a bit of a twist later where you find out another aspect that was going on during the seance, but once again it kind of like all came out in that first go of it, which made it really fun because then every time I got to go back through it just for, like second and third round, just to make sure everything was in place, I didn't have to play too much with the mechanics of it. It was really just the aesthetic and like the fun trappings of a seance. So I really like threw everything in there but the kitchen sink. So it was a fun one.
I love that. One of my favorite things is when you're writing and you're putting in details and you're not really sure why they're in there, but they are. And then later, as you're writing, you're like, oh, that's why that was there. I mean, isn't that like,
Yes.
that's part of the magic of, that's my
Yes.
favorite part of the magic of writing. Editing is not magic, but, but when you're writing and you have that inspiration where you realize that's why that was in there is really cool.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree.
Um, so I wanted to talk too about your other book, The Daughters of Block Island. I saw that the cover quote is from Nancy Holder, who is a dear friend of mine from San Diego, and she is just fantastic. And guys, she said it's guaranteed to keep you up all night. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that book? These two books aren't connected, right?
They're not connected, but they are both kind of Gothic-y mystery set in Rhode Island. So there's definitely a spiritual connection between the two. And yeah, just just to go back to Nancy, she is just one of my favorite people of all time. She was one of my mentors at my MFA program at Stone Coast. And I was very lucky because she she left the program not long after, and I was so grateful that I got to work with her. She's just wonderful.
She is so fantastic. And anybody listening who hasn't read Nancy Holder, she's been on the podcast before, but she has written so many books in all different like movie. She did the Crimson Peak. She wrote the book for that. And so anyway, if you haven't read Nancy Holder, go grab a Nancy Holder book. They're great.
But yes, agreed. Oh, I love her.
Did you work on the Daughters of Block Island while you were in the program?
So, excellent question, because the Daughters of Block Island actually started as a really terrible short story that was for a critique with Nancy Holder and Robert Levy. It was like a joint, the two of them ran that critique group. And it was like I had written it in epistolary format, so it was all emails, but like, I was trying to do something experimental. I mean, wait, that's fine. That's the place for it, right? In an MFA critique
That's
group.
why you're in that program.
Yes, I was taking some liberties, doing some crazy stuff. And so I wrote the emails as all one-sided. So they were originally all from the character Blake to her sister Talia, who do remain in the book, and they survive the switch over from short story to novel. But it was just like a bizarre, and so Nancy and Robert and others, students in the group were sort of like, yeah, this doesn't really work. We get, it was fun, but it was very helpful because they also said, but there's something here. Like, these characters are intriguing. This setting is wonderful. So, don't throw away the baby with the bathwater kind of thing. And then after I had graduated and was working on a new project, I had gotten my literary agent with what was my master's thesis. It was a different book entirely. And then I was working on a new book, and I was like, I'm going to dust off that, terrible short story and see what I can do with it. And then, it really started to come together. And so The Daughters of Block Island is set on Block Island, and a young woman, Blake, who has known her whole life that she was adopted, she was in and out of foster care. She discovers the identity of her birth mother and realizes that she lives on Block Island. And she also finds out that she had a sister that was not given up for adoption. So it sort of opens up this mystery for her. She returns to the island, and there was a very good reason why people did not want her to return to the island. So she sort of has to solve that mystery. And then her sister Talia also comes into the fray and has to pick up where Blake left off. So.
Oh, I love it. And the Block Island book is it more horror? I saw that Beneath the Poet's House says thriller. So what's the difference?
Yeah, I don't think there is a difference really. Okay. I think we were a little concerned with Beneath the Poet's House that if we didn't put thriller on there, that it could be taken as historical or even just this. So we were sort of like, no, this still has fun and twisty elements to it. But yeah, I feel like the vibe of the two books are very connected. And if anything, the new book coming out in this coming October has more of a horror vibe. These ones to me are sort of like mystery thriller suspense and like elements of Gothic horror, like Rebecca by Du Maurier. Like
Right.
there's some horror there, but it's not like you don't have to call it a horror novel. But yeah,
Right.
the How to Fake a Haunting, I definitely played a lot more with horror tropes, so that was fun.
Oh, fun. Well, in October, Booklights goes all horror. So you're going to have to come back
Well, I
so
would be
that we can,
honored.
yeah, so that we can talk about that. So I'm writing myself a note. Um,
Amazing.
and that title, How to Fake a Haunting, reminds me of, I always do. I got my start in horror short fiction before I sort of moved over toward paranormal romance. And so I have a deep love of horror. And every year I do a Halloween horror movie countdown. And so there has been a run of things like Hell House LLC and things
Mhm.
like that, where it's like a mockumentary of them, making a fake haunted house, but it turns out to be real. So
Yes, I love it.
I love the title of this because that's
Thank
kind
you.
of that same vibe. Do you want to? Is it up for pre-order yet? Can people get it?
Not up for pre-order yet, but I would
Okay.
imagine it won't be too much longer. We're kind of finalizing, all the last minute stuff
Okay.
now.
Yay.
But yeah, called How to Fake a Haunting. I believe pub date is set for October 7th, and it is about a woman who is married to a man who on paper does not really look like an alcoholic. Like he's never gotten a DUI, he holds down a job and he has a very influential family. But he is, absolutely an alcoholic and making her and her daughter's lives miserable. However, she fears she cannot divorce him without coming up against his influential family and potentially losing custody of her daughter. So she and her best friend decide to fake a haunting at the house in order to drive him away, and
Oh.
shenanigans ensue.
I love it. I love it.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
have you, I'm sure that you have, but that idea reminds me of 1408, where the guy is constantly proving hauntings not to be real, and he wants to know that there's might be life after death, and
Yes, that's a great, nobody's mentioned that, but yeah, absolutely. And I love that story. So that's great.
yeah, yeah, and the movie is really fun too. It's often in
It
the top.
is. It's like trippy too, and like gotta love some John Cusack.
Yeah, and poor John Cusack, he was like alone for most of that movie.
I
He was
know, and brought
exhausted
through the
after the
ringer in that film.
right. Kept messing with him over and over.
Yes,
Um,
I'm like so glad you reminded me about that. I'm gonna rewatch that one. I haven't seen that one in ages, and
oh
it's a fun
yeah,
one.
yeah. It's definitely worth a rewatch. It's so good. I that kind of dovetails into. I wanted to ask, who inspires you? Who do you like to read? We always our listeners always like to add to their to be read list. So who inspires you and makes you go, oh, I got to get back to the keyboard?
Yeah, oh, so another great question. And I have to, I know, especially when you want to introduce readers, I do like to introduce readers to new writers, but I always have to say, I mean, Shirley Jackson, I
Yes.
love her. The Lottery is a huge influence on, I mean, I wrote predominantly short fiction for years before I started novels, and
Me too. Yeah, it's
it
good.
was
Good
because
training.
exactly, and it was because I was so inspired by The Lottery. Like that story
Yes.
just does something
Hmm.
that's so incredible. So yeah, Shirley Jackson's just a favorite. Um, as far as like, see, I'm really terrible with this. I have to like just pull up because I have so many, but I have a horrible memory. So even if I just like look
I'm
at,
like that with titles. Everybody goes, "What are you reading?" I'm like, gotta open up my
yeah,
Kindle app and see what is that? What is it
exactly.
I'm reading?
So there's a lot of actually really wonderful local thriller authors, local to me, in like the Rhode Island, Connecticut area that I've just been devouring their work. So, I mean, Luann Rice is a staple of, I mean, so many people know her, but her work is just wonderful. Tracy Sierra, her debut last year, Night Watching,
Mm,
like talk about inspiring you to go back. Like, I mean, I just found that such a perfect thriller. I think it has horror elements. It was a Jimmy Fallon book club pick.
Wow.
But I
I
still
didn't know
feel,
he had a book club.
yeah,
That's
me neither. I
cool.
feel like it kind of flew under the radar a little bit, and it's just wonderful. Um, I did really love Rachel Harrison's newest. She writes horror, like very solid horror, but she's got a new vampire book that came out called So Thirsty that was really wonderful.
Oh, sounds
Um,
good.
and then let's see. I mean, and I love Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware to me is like the true predecessor to Agatha Christie, and I just like devour every new book that she has because they're so twisty. And then I'll throw one more out there because it was definitely a an inspiration for my new book. It's called The September House by Carissa Orlando. And that
Oh,
was really fun. Definitely another one that's like thriller that plays with a lot of horror tropes and elements. So. And I
yeah.
don't,
Oh, I
you
love
won't
that.
you won't guess where it's going, which I always appreciate in a book.
Well, one last question before we run out of time. When you were starting on your writing journey, was it always horror? Have you dabbled in other genres, or what is it for you that makes you want to write?
Yeah, I think I've always been a horror fan. And I think, like I said, when I started with short fiction, and my short fiction is like very much rooted in the traditions of horror. I think when I started writing novels is when I branched more into the thriller and mystery and suspense directions. But yeah, no, I usually stay in the territory of the dark. Like as long as it's, exploring something that's twisty or, I love buried secrets coming to light, which is, like
Right,
the quintessential like little line that you've got to look for on the book description. Like, is there going to be twists in this? Is there going to be things that creep me out? Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love reading everything. Like I
right.
read literary, nonfiction, whatever, fantasy, sci-fi, the whole gamut. But to write, I think um I really feel like I think I would feel too out of sorts. I'm never, let's put it this way, I'm never really called to explore a story that doesn't fall within that sort of dark fiction parameter.
Right, right. Yeah, my mom used to beta read for me in the beginning, and she used to give me things back and go, whoa.
Amazing, yes. You
Yeah.
got to get that sort of raised eyebrow from your mom, like, where did
Yeah,
you come up with this?
she said, you always got to worry about the cute ones.
There you go. Love it. What's going on behind those eyes?
Right, right. Well, how if somebody reads Beneath the Poet's House and they're super excited, how can they find you? Are you on social media? Should they go to your website? What's the best way to tell you, oh my gosh, when's the next book coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely have a website. I haven't been the best about keeping it super updated, but I do tend to have like the latest events. And I
Mm-hmm.
will always have the books up on the homepage. But from my website, I also on the homepage, there's a link to all my social media. So
Okay. Where do you enjoy hanging out most?
I've definitely given up on Twitter. I think it's like still up on my profile, but my
Yeah.
account got hacked and I never got it back, so that's kind of a bust. I've been doing a little more on Blue Sky, but probably Facebook, Instagram are kind of an
Okay.
equal, I'm there.
Okay.
I'm an elder millennial, so I've been on Facebook since 2004 and I'm not
I
giving it
know,
up
right?
anytime soon.
Yeah, I always feel like I just can't learn another one.
I
Or
know.
threads.
I know. Threads,
Threads. I'm
man.
like,
Oh, that's
man,
the
if my Instagram happens to hop over to threads, okie dokie. But
Yep.
yeah,
I
I
am
just
right there with you. Although I've been finding Blue Sky to be like not that like it's pretty like if you were doing stuff on Twitter, it feels like
it
not
feels sane.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Mhm. It feels like old Twitter and also blue. So I feel like, okay, this
Yes.
is easy. I'm not learning something
Absolutely.
new.
Very much so.
Well, thanks so much for being on today. It was great chatting with you. Definitely, I will look for that book in October. Hopefully, you can come back on.
Yes.
And everyone, go grab Beneath the Poet's House. It sounds fantastic. And for everyone out there like me, who is very low key Poe obsessed, you're definitely going to want this book. So go grab it. So thanks
Well,
for being here, Krista.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This was a true joy. Thank you for your insightful questions. Like I said, you asked me some good ones that I haven't been asked yet. So that's great, and I love it.
All right. Thank you again.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.